So good morning, Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center regional districts and BOCES. Welcome to the DDC meeting. Let's see if I can get the screen to change this morning. There we go. Welcome to the District Data Coordinator meeting. This meeting is being recorded, so if you need to check back with it as a reference, it will be available for you after the meeting. And when I say after the meeting, I mean either later today or tomorrow, possibly. We will get resources out to you. But here we go. Let's get started. So we would like to introduce the data team to you. That's myself, Helen Goodfriend. We also have Michelle Ruggiero, Pam Walkowiak, and Samantha Stokas. We will all be presenting for you this morning. Today's agenda is a little bit different from what we sent out on Friday. We moved some things around in an effort to better balance your before break and your after break experiences. So it goes like this. We are welcoming you now. We're going to follow up. Michelle will follow up with the due dates and timelines. Then we're going to go into new reporting requirements, followed by data reporting, update reminders. We will follow that up with a 10-minute break. And then we will hear from Sarah and our special services team, followed by a breakout session, which would be 20 minutes, and then possibly around 10 minutes for discussion about that. We have a number of topics that we dreamt up for you this time, so hopefully you'll find a room that suits you. You will be able to choose your own adventure on that. Followed up with some information on level 1 reports from Samantha. Then there are the testing slides, some information on the horizon coming up for you, and we'll end up with a Q&A. Absolutely feel free to ask questions during the meeting. You can put your questions in the chat, and a chat monitor will ask it for you. So let's get started with due dates and timelines. Take it away, Michelle.
All right, thanks, Helen, and good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Before we get started, please remember that due dates are subject to change, and there may be additional deadlines that come up throughout the year. We, of course, will notify you when we hear of any updates. As a reminder, Friday SED deadlines mean that the data must be migrated from level 0 by the Wednesday prior. So the first date, January 5th, has already passed. This was the initial BEDS pull of both enrollment and FERPL data, which were collected for calculating preliminary state aid calculations. These counts are also used by the U.S. Department of Ed for federal reporting purposes. There are a total of 3 BEDS pulls for the year, and Pam will speak to this a bit later this morning. The next due date is Friday, January 12th, which means migrated from level 0 by tomorrow, the 10th at noon. This is the last date to submit data populating the VR 1 through 9 reports. Here we're specifically speaking about the data coming from Frontline IEP and populating the BEDSday snapshot domain in level 0. When that data is migrated, it not only updates level 2 as applicable, it also updates the Pupils with Disabilities System or PD system. Typically, the PD system refreshes on a Monday. However, Monday, January 15 is a holiday, so that's why we're seeing January 16 as the due date for the certification of the VR 1 through 6 and 8 in the PD system. The VR 7 and 9 are not required to be certified. We are happy to have our special services team joining us this morning, and I'm sure they will be providing more information at that time. We have 2 deadlines on Friday, January 26th, which means migrated from level 0 no later than noon on Wednesday, January 24th. The first one listed is student digital resources. NYSED has placed an emphasis on having districts submit this data as this collection helps identify specific needs and target resources and funding opportunities when they become available. The second one, due on January 26th, is the preliminary course instructor assignment and student class entry exit. This will be used by the Office of State Assessment for determining counts of students enrolled in courses leading to state assessments. Next up is a due date related to testing level ones, must have demographics, student enrollment, and program service data in by Wednesday, February 7th. Level 2 then creates the extract of 0231 eligibility program service codes for schools administering the NYSUS law. Since this data is being pulled on a Wednesday, I would suggest making sure that this info is migrated from level 0 a week or even 2 weeks prior to this deadline. In fact, I would suggest not to delay and begin now to verify that you have all L students properly reported. Wednesday, March 1st is the absolute last date for the EFT data collection. What is EFT? You may be asking. Well, this is not a SURS collection, and it refers to ESSA Financial Transparency. That's the EFT. It is actually submitted through the IRS Data Exchange, or IDEX, on NYSED's business portal. And on March 11, that's when the data extract will be created for further analysis and preparation for release on data.nysed.gov as appropriate. Friday, March 15 is another date when 2 collections are due. Again, this means migrated from level 0 by Wednesday, March 13th at noon. We have the second beds day pull for enrollment and FERPL data. Again, this is preliminary. The third and last pull is at the end of the data reporting year, and this is when the data is considered final. Also on March 15 is the UPK enrollment data. That's when that's due. This will reflect students enrolled on March 13, 2024, and is collected for calculating UPK grant funding. Lastly, on March 22nd, due from level 0 no later than March 20th, is the data for My Brother's Keeper grants program and the Liberty Partnership programs. This is preliminary data that's due. All recipients of My Brother's Keeper with active grants must have complete data reported to SURS using program service codes 4005 to 4009 and Liberty Partnership Program Code 4004. Helen will provide some additional information regarding these programs later in the presentation. All right, and on the next slide here for your reference, we have the link to NYSED's 23-24 timeline and just a quick year at a glance with a few notable reference points. So with that, we will now hear from Pam regarding some reporting requirements. So Pam, you want to take yourself off mute?
Apparently Pam needs more coffee before we start doing this. Good morning, everyone. Moving on to our segment on new reporting requirements, we actually have some good news here for you all. Although we continue to get additional information on the requirements we have already mentioned to you this year, there have been no new requirements since our last meeting, at least not yet, as far as we know. But, you know, things change. But for the moment, let's enjoy the good news and, you know, celebrate the fact that there's nothing new at this moment in time. Okay. But let's take a look at other things that have changed this year and any additional details. So as you know, districts are required to report attendance for K-12 students enrolled in the homebound location. This is not new, but some additional guidance has been provided on how to determine and report absences. Since only a single calendar can be submitted per location, SED's guidance states that the homebound calendar should be flexible and capture instructional days for all homebound students, both elementary and secondary. Homebound students at the elementary level are required to receive 10 hours of instruction per week. Homebound students at the secondary level are required to receive 15 hours of instruction per week. Notice there's no requirement per day for those hours of instruction. So depending on how that is scheduled throughout the week, can impact your attendance information. So homebound students that receive the required number of hours of instruction per week should be reported as present for the week using the appropriate code. This will likely be present out with the modality that aligns with how instruction was delivered, either in person or remote. Remember, a homebound student would be reported as present out with a modality of in person if a tutor were to travel to the student's home. Okay, students that receive less than the required hours of instruction per week should have their attendance prorated by the proportion of required instruction they receive. Let's take a look at a couple of examples to try to clarify this. Okay, in the first example, under the elementary column, an elementary student received 8 of the 10 required hours of instruction for the week. Students should have their days of attendance, as I said, prorated by 80% for this particular week. In this scenario, any single instructional day for the week should be recorded using one of the absence student codes. The remainder of the instructional days should be recorded using one of the present student attendance codes. Okay, it's not necessarily a one-to-one correlation, since this schedule of instructional hours may vary per student per week. Okay, in the second example, we're going to look at a secondary student who received 9 of the 15 required hours of instruction for the week. This student should have their days of attendance prorated to 60% for the week. 2 instructional days should be marked as absent using the appropriate codes, and 3 days should be reported as present. Are there any questions on this?
No questions in the chat yet, Pam.
Okay. All right. So we will move on to other, the next area, which is staff assignment. So after years of being relatively quiet, staff assignment is quite active this year. We had previously mentioned new assignment codes that were added at the beginning of the year, and we also had several codes that were removed. There are 2 new additions to staff assignment that are noted here. And I have some good news in this area for Envision districts. The recent release included these 2 new codes along with those that were added by SED earlier in the year. Those codes were Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Physician's Assistants, and Certified Athletic Trainer. Just to refresh your memory, because I didn't remember them off the top of my head either. Okay, the complete list of assignment codes can be found in the SERS manual. As always, you should report all staff members working in any assignment that is on the list, including, for example, department chairpersons, administrators, and yes, even DDCs. SED has just begun a process to assist in the reporting of staff assignments. Let's take a look at that next. Definitions were added to the SERS manual for the 6 assignment codes that require the 2 new fields to be reported this year. They will be working on adding definitions for the other staff assignment codes. However, there are over 200 codes. It will take a while, but it should help to minimize confusion. For example, should I choose psychologist or school psychologist? With the definitions, you'll be able to make a more informed decision. You may recognize this list of assignment codes as they were the ones for which you must report the 2 new staff assignment fields. although this was introduced earlier this year and is fully supported in the data warehouse, we were waiting for HR systems to fully implement the functionality. So let's take a moment to refresh our memory on this, since we have an update to report in this area. We'll look at the next slide. The two new staff assignment fields are assignment field and percent time assigned. Remember, these only need to be reported for the six staff assignment codes that were listed on the previous slide. Basically, nurses, social workers, psychologists, and school counselors. The good news is Envision has now been updated to include the functionality to report these fields. And you can see a screenshot there that shows the drop-down where you can select the assignment field options. SED had previously stated that the current informational errors generated if these fields are missing will become warning fatal errors, quote, sometime in January. We do not have a specific date that this will change, but it would be a prudent idea to add this information to Envision as soon as possible for your district. So let's look at these fields just a little bit more to refresh our memories. Assignment field identifies the type of assignment the staff person has. As you can see from the screenshot of the Envision drop-down window, the options are in district. This will likely be your most frequent choice. Basically, the staff member is employed by your district, BOCES or charter school, and is assigned to a location in your home district, BOCES or charter school. The four remaining categories will be used in two cases. One, you have a staff member who is employed by another local educational agency. Think an itinerant staff member, or is assigned to work at another district or location. Remember, we are only talking about staff members who have one of the 6 assignment codes. I keep saying that. But it's important because it's not, you don't have to do this for everybody. And those 4 additional codes are contracted in public, contracted in private. Basically, that means they're employed by another local educational agency or private school, and they are working in your district. And then we have the 2 versions of contracted out, means they are employed by you and working elsewhere. The second new field, percentage time assigned, simply collects the percentage of time the person is assigned to a particular location. So if they're only assigned to one location, you would report 100% at that location. And if they're at multiple locations, you would report the relative amount of time. You just keep in mind, you cannot report more than 100% of the time, even if they are very diligent and hardworking individuals. So I think I see a question.
Yes, there's one question.
I do not know the status of WNCAP. You can enter this data directly into level 0. However, when you do another import of staff assignment, you will have to re-enter it. So hopefully WNCAP will have that available as soon as possible, if not already. Does this include grade level? I had asked that question of state ed because sometimes we have individuals who only work with specific grade levels in a building. And basically they said grade level does not need to be used for these particular assignments. They're mostly looking at grade level when principal is involved and it's related to, growth scores provided for the principal. So you could report the individual at the school for all grade levels and then report the percentage of time in the building, not in each grade level. Okay, and we also have a note here that says from Kristen saying that she thinks WNCAP is updated, and but you may want to contact your support and they will talk you through. Okay, so David's question, and it's not silly. They're all good questions. Why would we need to report on someone contracted in? Basically, that would be someone who's, let's say you have someone employed by another BOCES and assigned to your school. I used to encounter, although ENL teachers are not one of the 6 assignment categories, but I used to be familiar with a situation where they were employed by a BOCES and assigned to a particular school district. So that would be the situation. In this case, it could be a social worker or a nurse that was employed by another agency and working in your district. Does that answer your question, David?
Yes, so.
Okay. I'm sorry, I think I mispronounced your name. Ovid?
Yeah, David.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, and Gabby also confirms that you can add the % time in WinCap. Anything else?
There was a question from John Baker about where the % time assigned field is.
Okay,
So he'll have to contact financial services for support on
Yeah.
Envision.
financial services can assist with the how-to of if you're, using Envision and supported by the RIC. Okay. All righty then. Are we ready to move on? And my next topic is just a reminder that you're going to want to keep up to date with state reporting changes. And the easiest way to do this is by looking at the revisions section every time a new SERS manual hits the stands. And we'll always send you a reminder when that happens. All revisions are listed at the top of the document by the version and date when they were changed. The changes themselves are highlighted in turquoise, and you can search the document searching for highlights to quickly find the specific details of the changes. Just to note though, when a new change comes out or a new revision comes out to the manual, the previous highlights are removed. So for version 19.4 that just came out, you will not be able to determine the exact changes that were made in versions 19.3, .2, or .1. You'll still see them in the revisions list, but you won't be able to see the actual text that was changed, as it will no longer be highlighted. For that reason, and because I'm a little bit of a pack rat, I keep a separate folder and save all versions for the year, which allows me to see details of all the changes that have occurred, just in case I need to go back and reference that. So as you can see, there's a couple of examples here about the report, a new update to reporting CTE records, and also a new language code that was added. So in the chat, I have a trivia question for you if you want to respond. What is the Dari language? And YOY is the code for it, PRS. Okay, I think I have a stumper. Indian? Close. There we go. Yes, Afghanistan. So, yes, it is a form of Persian spoken in Afghanistan. That was like learning new trivia. So, free of charge, we're providing that trivia for you this morning. Yes. So you guys were all close. And so let's move on and take a look at that CTE update that was in the recent SERS manual. And actually, rather than a change, it's more of a clarification. Several years ago, SED removed the requirement to report students with an enrollee status in a CTE program. They have further clarified that you do not need to report CTE information for students who start a program, but then leave prior to reaching participant status. Now, they mentioned October 1st. That's not a hard and fast date. That's just the example that they gave. So if a student leaves prior to reaching participant status, you do not need to report them. However, if a student leaves the program prior to completing the requirements to become, oh, wait a minute, hang on. Yep, okay, I already said that part. Okay, the service manuals gives details of what a student must have completed to be considered a participant. Essentially, they need to have completed 1 full year of coursework. Although some districts do have approved CTE programs, in all likelihood, this is going to be, this may change the process for our BOCES who have students who start and then stop. Yes, Sherry, that's correct. The CTE program service records are reported by the program provider, which, as I said, sometimes may be a school district if they have an approved program. We do have some in our region that do. But in most cases, we're looking at our BOCES to be reporting this data. And moving on to our next topic of updates and reminders. Let's take a look at the recent release of 19.01A of level 0 that was installed. As expected, 19.01A supports new and updated reporting requirements. And we'll look at that list in a moment. But moving on, they also have this year, State Ed has transitioned many level 0 informational errors to warning or fatal errors. These errors will now prevent migration. You may now see errors on data that previously migrated. This will ultimately ensure cleaner data, as informational errors were sometimes not given priority. Okay, and finally, with every new release comes an updated version of the error messages document, which can give you insight into these errors as you attempt to resolve them. You can access that document from the link here. And it's a great place to go and look up an error and get a little bit of additional insight into what's going on. All right, so now let's go on and look at the changes in the new release of 19.01A. Firstly, in the assessments domain, you will no longer see Alt-REAG and CCR categories. They have been combined into the ADV or advanced category. As historical data is not changed, if you navigate back to a prior year, you will still see counts of Alt-REAG and CCR assessments as they had previously been reported. Second on our list of updates, as we have mentioned, updates have been made to staff assignment area to support the new codes and fields. And we just covered that in some detail. Thirdly on our list, in the course reports, you will see new columns which indicate if a course is secondary or prior to secondary. This can help you as you verify your state course codes and puts the information at your fingertips. I've recently worked with a couple of districts to do this, and we went into the course reports and did a district school summary, clicked on the high school, and just eyeballed the list. And there were a couple of times where we saw course codes that were linked to prior to secondary courses. Obviously, that would be something that you would want to take a look at to ensure that courses at the high school were all linked to secondary level courses. Fourth on our list is in the staff snapshot area. I'm sure you've all seen the message that says the first and or last name reported for this teacher does not match what is in the TEACH database. Well, they've added that name from the TEACH database so that you can easily take a look and determine if it was just a situation where an individual got married or changed, there's a hyphen missing. So that'll be easy at a glance. You won't have to go to your level 2 report and generate that in order to see what the differences are. And finally, a data quality report has been added to show students reported with the crisis indicator. You can find this report in the demographics section of the data quality report. The student's immigration status is also shown on this report, along with an indicator to show if the student was reported last year also. So just a reminder of the guidance here, the crisis indicator should only be reported in the first year that the student arrives. Okay. Any questions on 19.01A?
There is one question.
Okay.
With level 0, 1901A, you can report students who turn 22 after Bed's Day with enrollment code 0011, not 0021 for students over 21. The 0011 enrollment code enables the student to push into the PD system, so the district receives funding for that student. This is more of a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Sherry, for that information. I haven't encountered that situation, but thank you for sharing that. And any district that has someone in that situation may want to take a closer look into that. All right, so that's the end of my updates for now, and I'm going to turn it back over to Helen to talk about updates and reminders.
Thank you, Pam. In the next segment, we're going to review items with upcoming deadlines and give you a few reminders about other items that should be in progress at this time. First up, we have a reminder about student digital resources, which you should be aware at this point in time is a mandatory annual collection. Data collection should have begun in the fall for reporting in January. How you collect that data, however, is a district decision, and you have a number of collection possibilities available to you. You can choose to collect the data digitally through your SMS. Or if you prefer a paper-based option, the RIC does have a survey printing service available for you. And if you would like to utilize that service, please contact Dr. Aiden with your requests. The memo linked here contains information on the survey, collection strategies, questions, and their response options, and guidance that can be used to assist a parent in answering the questions. The key thing to remember here is that the questions must be asked using the exact wording that is specified. This brings us to 2 additional collections due on the same day, which are course instructor assignment and student class entry exit. The data pull will be sometime after January 26th. This is a theme. Pam told you a sometime after date, and so am I. We don't know the actual date of the pull, sorry, but sometime after January 26th. So this is a good time to remind you that data should be kept up to date and accurate throughout the school year, as SED can conduct a data pull from any domain at any time. So it's their advice to keep your data up to date and accurate at all times. Moving on, there are a couple of specific programs that I'd like to talk about for a moment, starting with My Brother's Keeper.
And excuse me,
Yes.
Helen, I'm going to back you up to the surveys. And we
Yes.
have a question from Gabby. Can you submit a combination of surveys from the paper service and virtually through the SMS? And how do you enter the paper surveys?
Like I stated, the collection method is a district decision. So if you get some digitally and if you get some paper-based, I don't have a personal problem with that. You
Right.
know, like as long as you can get the data in accurately, you wouldn't want to give a survey digitally and paper to a student. So you would just need to make sure that there's one survey for each student, and how you get them there is up to you. As far as how you enter the paper surveys, I don't
Yeah,
know if there's scanning available for that, or if it's just manual entry.
I can add a little bit here.
Okay.
I know that through the RIC, you can contract with us to provide surveys, and in that case, they would be scanned. You can contact Dr. Aiden for details on that and pricing. If you're simply printing a form and sending out, if you're printing a form and sending it out to the students, you would obviously gather those forms, and then that data would have to be entered into your SMS manually, unless you happen to be able to do scanning in your district. And then as far as combining the sources of that data, I believe that, that would be up to you. If if you're going to have your high school do it one way and your elementary schools do it a different way, as long as it's all reported in your SMS, eventually end up there, it should export and go into the data warehouse, as with every other export.
Thanks,
So,
Pam.
yeah, we're getting some additional.
Yeah, I see
Jones,
the
yes,
question
we
from
scan
Lynn.
them. And testing creates a file, so they've contracted with our testing department to do that for them. And David said that we turned it into a Google form, then uploaded the data into our student management system. So there's several options there. And as Helen had said, it's, as far as collecting the data and getting it into your system, that's, every district makes their own decision in that area.
I also wanted to address Lynn's question. She says, looking at the level 1 visualization report now broken out by building, but how do we see the overall district percent? If that is in reference to the student digital resources survey, there is a report in level 1 where you can see how many students, what percentage you have in. Is that correct, Pam?
Did you
Yes.
say Sam or Pam? I'm hoping you said Sam.
Whoever has the answer.
There's also a report, a data quality report in level 0 that gives percentages for the digital resources.
And going back to the level 1 visualization, it'll depend on your access, if you have district access versus location access. But as long as you don't drill down, if you have full district access, as long as you don't drill down into one of those locations, you should see an overall percent for the district.
Thank you. Okay, so seeing nothing else popping up in the chat, we're going to go ahead and move forward. I did this slide already, right? Yes. So we're going to talk about My Brother's Keeper, which is a program that seeks to change the narrative of boys and young men of color and all students by closing and eliminating the opportunity gaps they face and helping them to reach their full potential. As Michelle mentioned earlier in the presentation, the deadline for reporting MBK programs is Friday, March 22nd, which means your deadline to migrate from level 0 is Wednesday, March 20th by 12 noon. If you want to become an MBK district, click on the link. Click on this link right here, and it'll give you information on how to become a district. And for information about participating in this program, we suggest that you reach out to the Office of Family and Community Engagement. MBK is reported in the higher ed section of programs, and here are the 5 program codes that can be reported. They're each a little bit different from the other, so your district might not have all of these. So make sure that you know which MBK program or programs your district offers. We created a tutorial last year, and it does still apply, and you can find it at the link that is circled there. There's one more higher ed program I want to mention that has the same deadline, and that's the Liberty Partnerships Program, which provides collaborative pre-collegiate school dropout prevention programs that support at-risk youth in completing secondary school and prepares those students for successful transition into post-secondary education or onto a career path. And for this, there's just one code. You're going to use code 4004 to indicate participation in LPP. And if you need more information on this one, you're going to reach out to the Office of Post-Secondary Access, Support, and Success. The SERS 401 reasonableness report at level 2 is very helpful in comparing data across the current and immediately previous year. While I'm not going to go into all of the details of this report, know that the reasonableness report is a red flag report that's designed to identify significant changes between data from year to year. This report allows the user to choose from a variety of categories and subtypes, including enrollment entry, enrollment exit, programs, demographics, and more. And this is where you would find all of those in this category type dropdown. This image shows programs, and please note that your report will look different based upon what programs your district or BOCES offers. But you can drill down in each category to view a list of students in that category. And here's where you can see it's this year and last year. Shows you the change of number, and then it shows you the percentage. When it's in red, that's your red flag. Red is going to be 10% difference in either direction, plus or minus. Regarding L counts, the final L data pull will be sometime in the May-June timeframe, another sometime. These data are used for EDFACS reporting, and EDFACS, in case you don't know, is code for the United States Education Department, or the feds, some people like to call it that. A good way to review your L data is by using the 401 reasonableness report in the programs category. Not only do you want to verify the students who are listed in the report, but you also want to ensure that there are no omissions. The image shows L eligible 0231. Where is that? Right here. It's also good to review the corresponding L programs. Here we see both English as a new language and transitional bilingual education programs. Make sure that you are seeing counts in the programs that you are not seeing counts for programs that you don't have. So if you have the program, you want to make sure you have the count. If you didn't have a count, you probably wouldn't see the program. Or here you're seeing a 0, but it was 1 last year, so it's going to show up. Additionally, it's a good time to check that those L students in year 1 in grades 3 through 8 have the 0242 NYSA slot eligibility code. That's right here. May, June is also the data pull for the immigrant counts, and that's right here.
And we
have
have
one
more
question.
question.
Sure.
Is it accurate that since data comes in through the year, things may seem unreasonable now, but should shake out by the end of the year? Yes, and if you
Yes.
notice the second to last line on this particular slide, I'm just answering for you, Helen.
Sure, go ahead.
Received seal of biliteracy. You have 100% difference in that area. because that typically will not be reported until the end of the year. So those types of discrepancies are, are expected throughout the year, but they should resolve themselves before the end of the year.
Thanks, Pam.
Sure.
Okay. Pam, I'm going to toss it back to you.
Thanks so much, Helen. Okay, so we're going to take a slight step backwards now to our past due dates. Okay. We want to remind you that the Beds Day data collection is an ongoing process throughout the year. The initial data pull was on January 5th. Our next data pull will be in March. And there is no certification of this data at this time, but it will be used for preliminary state aid projections. This is not the end of the Beds Day data collection. As you know, there are 3 data pulls in this area during the year. The data will be pulled again in March and a 3rd time with the final data pull at the end of the reporting year in August. Certification will occur once at the end of the year in August. Please do continue to review your Beds Day reports to ensure that the data remains accurate throughout the year. The .1 staff snapshot, or not staff snapshot, the .1 snapshot reports will be available shortly for January and can be used to compare to the current data as we move forward to review for discrepancies. Changes do occur in this data, but you want to ensure that you know why the data changed. Okay. Okay, so looking ahead now to March, the next data pull will be Wednesday, March 15th for Beds Day data. Data needs to be at level 0 by noon. As you work to ensure the accuracy of the Beds Day data, the 6 Beds Day verification reports listed here should be reviewed. All reports identified here, except for the SIRS 319, which is for informational purposes, will need to be certified in August. However, keep in mind, even the informational report should always be reviewed for accuracy. Okay, moving on to our next, same topic. To assist you in your review, report guides are available for each report, and you can access them using these links. The first link takes you to a list of all L2RPT report guides, and the second and third links take you to guides for the specific beds report. Note that some of the report guides cover multiple reports. The report guides provide useful information about the source of the data that appears in each of the reports and what the report. As a general rule, the Beds Day enrollment numbers are frozen as of the date of the SED data pull. They reflect the actual enrollment on Beds Day. However, student inclusion in each of the subgroups is determined using program service data reported anytime during the school year. In other words, if a student was a member of a subgroup or program category at any point during the school year, then that student will be counted as a member of that subgroup for the school year on the Beds Day report. Let's just say that in a different way. A student enrolled on Beds Day who was identified as a student with a disability on December 1st will be reported as a student with a disability in the Beds Day enrollment count for that school year. Okay, so just keep in mind that the program data will reflect what happens throughout the year, whereas the Beds Day enrollment counts will only report students enrolled on Beds Day. And one additional report that can be used while reviewing your Beds Day information is the 3-year enrollment summary report that is available to districts through the IRS portal. These reports show 3 years of Bedsday data and FERPL information that can be used to identify variations and discrepancies across years. This year's reports show data from the fall of 2021 through the fall of 2023. And these reports are refreshed weekly on Monday. So this is just another source of data that you can use to look for reasonableness amongst what the data that is being reported this year. And these reports, there are actually multiple reports contained within the zip file that you will download. In addition to the 3-year report, you may also have reports for resident students enrolled in charter schools and students in non-public schools within your district. In addition to the enrollment counts included in each data, in each report is a data mapping. If you scroll down through the report to the second page, it will show you the sources of the counts in each report. And this can also be very helpful when you're when you find an area that, you need to dive deeper into. Okay. Okay, and that's that on that. And we're going to take a look at the UPK counts. So shifting away from the Bedsday, this is a reminder for UPK enrollment counts, which will be determined in March. The data pull will be March 15th, and the counts will include UPK students enrolled on March 13th. This information is collected for calculating UPK grant funding. So obviously your counts are going to be very important as they may impact your funding. In previous years, a UPK report has been posted to the IRS portal for each district. Those reports were discontinued last year and are no longer available. The SERS 333 report was updated to include information previously found in the portal reports. Here's a screenshot of the new summary report. You'll notice the FTE columns that were added on the right. Okay, this was to bring that information into the level 2 report. In addition to a total count of UPK students, you will see that the counts are broken down by category based on funding. This list will vary by district on the funding available to that district. One item that will not be included in the SERS 333 will be the district's funding allocation. You will need to determine that number from the allocation reports. So let's talk about that next. UPK allocations for your district can be found at the link shown here. Within the web page, you will see a list of allocation reports. There are 2 sources of funding available. Your district may receive funding from multiple sources, so you'll want to check both reports. Each report contains slightly different columns, as you can see from the column headers here. So be sure you're getting your data from the correct columns for each specific report. You'll be verifying the same information as in the past. You'll just be looking in different places for this particular piece of the data. If you have questions on the allocations for your district, you can contact the Office of Early Learning at the email shown here. Any questions on UPK counts or UPK funding?
No questions yet.
All right. And moving on then, we're going to talk for a minute about the 8,300 enrollment. So let's do a quick summary of what we have learned since we initially presented this new reporting requirement last year. The easiest scenarios are for those students below or above compulsory school age. So we'll take a look at those first. And really, they haven't changed. Basically, if a student is below or above compulsory school age, exit them as you always have. If the student re-enrolls within the current school year, you'll want to update their exit code if appropriate. You'll be able to see if they have re-enrolled, at least in New York State, by reviewing your UIAS reports. I'll probably mention that a few times during the next couple slides, because reviewing that report it's a very good idea in order to catch these students who exit your district but then go elsewhere. Okay, so just a note, students enrolled in preschool, pre-K, and in kindergarten in general will be below compulsory school age and do not need a 400 exit code and an 8300 enrollment code. So students below compulsory school age can still be exited with a 425 if that's the most appropriate code, which is essentially left the district, no documentation of transfer. Okay, so now that we've taken care of the two easier categories, let's move on to the compulsory age students. So as you know, all students of compulsory school age that stop attending with no documentation of transfer to another school or program must be exited with a 400 exit code and re-enrolled for census purposes with an 8300 enrollment code in the district location, in other words, location 0000. Students of compulsory school age cannot be exited with any dropout code. The only variation on this theme is if a student re-enrolls within the current school year, either in your district or in another district. And remember that UIS report? That's where you'll be able to find out if they enrolled within another district in New York State. That is, of course, once the district loads that data to the data warehouse and migrates it. So there may be a time lag. A frequent concern regarding students who have been exited and re-enrolled for census purposes is, will they count as a dropout for my graduation cohort? And the answer is yes, if they were already reported in a cohort prior to being exited. So if they exited in grade 8 prior to having a grade 9 entry date, they would not count as a dropout for the graduation cohort. The other situation where they would not count is if they subsequently re-enroll. So again, advertisement for the UIAS report, keep an eye on that. And you can go back and change students who re-enroll within the current school year in another district. So basically this slide addresses compulsory age students in the current school year. Now let's take a look at what happens in the subsequent school years.
I'm sorry, Pam, that slide seems to be missing from the presentation.
Okay, yes, I just noticed that. I went, ah! All right, so okay, so in the subsequent school year, I'm going to try to do this from memory and at least cover the topic.
And we'll make sure that the slide is in there before we send it out to the field.
Right. Basically, if you have a student who, when you're looking at students that you need to roll forward, if you have a student who will not be of compulsory school age in the next school year, you should exit them on June 30th with the appropriate exit code. And that would typically be a dropout code. Okay, so the 8300 enrollment from this current school year for students who will not be of compulsory school age next year should be exited on June 30th with the appropriate dropout code. All right, if you have a student who will still continue to be of compulsory school age next year, then you will roll them forward and with another 8300 enrollment code for the subsequent school year and a grade level of unknown, which brings or UNK. And so the distinction there is when a student is exited to 8300 in the current school year, they can either continue their grade level enrollment with the 8300, or they can use UNK in the current school year. Going forward, they must use UNK as the grade level. Okay, that kind of summarizes what it says. So what you want to do at the end of the school year is review your 8300 enrollments, look for students who will no longer be of compulsory school age in the subsequent school year and exit them on June 30th with the appropriate exit code. Okay, I think I got the highlights of that slide. All right. And any questions there?
No more questions, Pam.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, and next topic is Partner Project Fact. And this is just a quick update for districts who are reporting students in higher education programs such as P-TECH. You will now receive an informational error if you report a Partner Project Fact record, but do not have the required demographic fields completed. Okay, those demographic fields related to Partner Project Fact are county of residence and education level of parent. This is informational only, as I suspect sometimes some of that information may be more difficult to obtain, such as education level of parent. So, but again, be aware of the informational messages and fix it as best, as possible when the information is available. And we also want to mention that there are now reports available at level 0 and level 2 where you can review your Partner Project Fact information. And the next slide. According to SED, the following districts participate in Partner Project Fact programs for 23-24. If you see your name on the list and believe that it is an error, please let us know. If you do not see your name on the list and believe that it should be, also let us know. All right. And I'm going to turn this over to Michelle to talk about the out of cert process. So any final questions?
No questions for you, Pam.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, Pam. Now that you've completed the first BEDS verification, we strongly recommend that you begin to review teacher certification information. If you look at NYSED's reporting timeline, this data is due May 17th, so you may think that it's too early to work on this now. But actually, this information can take a great deal of time to verify and update. There are many moving parts. So please start the process early and continue to monitor this data up through the deadline. There were some new level 0 edits that were put in place last year, which translated into fewer teachers coming up as not certified, but it's better to be safe than sorry, as the saying goes. So how does this collection work? NYSED reviews the staff and course data submitted through SIRS in Staff Snapshot and Course Instructor Assignment to determine which instructors are certified to teach the courses to which they are assigned and which are not. Why is this important? The main reason is that the results end up being reported publicly on data.nysed.gov. There is a staff qualification section on the report card labeled Teachers Teaching Out of Their Subject or Field of Certification. So, how does the process work? There are 3 primary components of the certification matching process. The first one is that teacher certifications are sourced from NYSED's Teach database, which when combined with your district's staff snapshot data, shows up on the SIRS 329 in the staff folder in the level 2 reports. The second component are the teacher assignments coming from Course Instructor Assignment, or CIA, which is sourced from your SMS. And the third component is the state course codes, which are aligned with certification areas and sourced from NYSED's Crosswalk, which is a spreadsheet that you could get on the IRSP in the business portal. The final results in all of this is the SIRS 328, also in the staff folder on level 2, which displays the certification status as a yes or no. So let's dive into each of these components. Understanding how these determinations are made will help you troubleshoot situations where you have teachers listed as teaching out of cert on the SIRS 328 report. All right, so the first component, what certifications do your teachers hold? So certifications are handled by the Office of Teaching Initiatives and stored in the Teach database. The link on the slide will bring you to OTI, which is the Office of Teaching Initiatives, where you can also jump to the Teach Online Services, also known as the Teach database. They're the ones that assign the Teach IDs, issue teaching certificates, handle name changes. So when you get those messages or those warnings about those name mismatches, if something needs to be done about that, then this office would handle that. So changes and issues are handled through OTI. While the Teach system itself is out of our purview, the SIRS 329 report at level 2 displays information submitted through Staff Snapshot and merged with this certification data coming out of the Teach system or from OTI. So let's take a closer look at the report. All right, so here is the SIRS 329. And again, this, just so you know, doesn't require end of year certification. It is designed for informational purposes only. And columns A through F, as designated, are from Staff Snapshot. And columns G through L are from OTI, from the Teach system. The Teach data is updated weekly, and the Staff Snapshot data is updated daily, but again, that will depend on your migration of the data from level 0. So the data displays all active certificates for staff reported in Staff Snapshot, including current initial or provisional expiring certificates and permanent professional certificates, which do not have expiration dates. Therefore, you may see a staff member on your report who held an initial provisional certificate set to expire, but has already obtained their professional permanent certificate, which will be displayed without a certification expiration date. In those cases, you would not need to alert them that they have an expiring certificate. You could also have multiple rows for the same teacher if they have multiple, or the same staff member if they have multiple certifications. Maybe they have certification in music, but they're also a school building leader or a school district leader, and that wouldn't have an associated teacher title with it. There is a report guide available, and the link to that is report guide itself, which is on the slide there. All right, so then moving on. So component 2, how are teachers' roles defined? The simple answer is through course instructor assignment, but as we all know, there is a lot going on in CIA. On the slide, we see a sample CIA or sample CIA records in level 0 for one teacher. This lists all the courses and sections for this specific teacher. Each field with a box around it and or number next to it contributes to CIA and the overall teacher certification process, and we will talk about each. But first things first, let's talk about courses. You know, the name says it all, course instructor assignment. So with courses, local courses must be mapped to state course codes. Every LEA in New York State needs to be drawn from the same pool of course codes. And course codes are labeled with a course level. We have prior to secondary, which is for grades K to 6, and secondary, which is for grades 7 to 12. You want to make sure that you select the course code at the appropriate level. And reviewing this was just made easier by the addition of the course level on the course report and the new release of level 0 that Pam discussed earlier. And then we also want to map all applicable courses. So what does that mean? Most instructional courses fall into this category. Courses like lunch or study hall are not expected to be mapped or reported. Each SMS is set up differently, but typically course mappings are entered in the course catalog. The mappings are imported into level 0 through the course template. A question that we get frequently, is which state course codes, do I pick? So, and there is a Q&A in the SIRS manual regarding this. And, the rule of thumb is that you always want to select the course code that most closely reflects the curriculum. And on the slide there, we have a link to the course catalog, the complete course catalog. And then also, if a course ends in a state assessment, there are specific codes that must be used. And that list is in the SIRS manual. So you want to take a look at both of those lists. And just a pro tip, course codes display by building. So if multiple buildings, you have multiple buildings at the same level, like you have multiple elementary schools, for example, and they have identical courses, you want to make sure that they are mapped to the same state course code in each of those buildings. So that's courses. Now we need to discuss the instructor part of course instructor assignment. So primary instructor, which is there on the screen in the box over to the right, identifies a teacher that has a primary responsibility for the course, aka teacher of record. At least one teach ID for each course and section must be reported with a Y in this field. So that's the number 1 here on the slide. It must be a certified teacher, cannot be a teacher aide or teaching assistant, and a Y will subject the teacher to a certification match. So they're doing the certification match on the primary instructors. If there were multiple primary instructors that were assigned to the course during its duration, NYSEB will use the most current instructor in the course section for the match. The primary instructor for the course, aka teacher of record, must be identified in the SMS. Each SMS handles it differently, so you want to work with your student services representative or SMS support for any questions related to entering these assignments in the source system. So for example, School Tool has rankings assigned in the master schedule, and a rank of 1 equals the primary instructor. eSchool Data and Infinite Campus have teacher roles that can be assigned with each course and section. Very important here note that I want to make is that any instructor or teacher, primary or not, must be in staff snapshot prior to be assigned to a course or to courses, or errors will occur. And in course instructor assignment, the extract uses the teach ID defined in the SMS. So for example, in School Tool, the teach ID is entered in the faculty module. So you want to make sure that the teach ID matches between what is entered in staff snapshot and coming from your HR system and what is entered in your SMS. All right, so that's the instructor piece of course instructor assignment. So lastly, we have to talk about the assignment piece. So we know that the teachers are linked to courses along with the start and end dates if applicable, but there are or can be some special flags or indicators involved. And we'll see these come up on the slide. There will be numbers 2 through 4 here. So where did these flags or indicators originate? Those flags or indicators are going to originate again in the SMS, and the location of these flags or indicators again would differ depending on the SMS you're using. So just as an example, the special ed flag and E&L flag are located in the faculty module for School Tool, and other flags like the incidental indicator are located in the master schedule in School Tool. So again, it's very important to know where these things are located in your SMS. So number 2 is the special ed indicator. So a Y in this field will subject the staff to a special education certification match. Always report special ed teachers in course instructor assignment, and that will have this flag again set to Y. Number 3 is your E&L indicator. So a yes in this field will subject the staff to a certification match. Always report E&L teachers in course instructor assignments, again, to have this come up as a Y. And in a moment too, we'll talk about this, but again, there were some new level 0 edits that were implemented last year that cross-reference the SWD and E&L state course codes and teacher flags. So for example, if you use a state course code associated with a special education course, but the teacher you assign doesn't have the special ed instructor flag set to yes, you'll get an error in level 0. So more on that a bit later. And then number 4, excuse me, is incidental teaching assignment indicator. So in SERS, it's still allowing up to 6. So districts and BOCES can select 6 courses and sections that a teacher can teach outside their certification area. There are some caveats to that. It should not exceed 10 hours of instruction per week. Teachers who do not hold special education certification cannot have incidental teaching assignments where special education certification is required. And school districts should contact their local BOCES for information on requesting approval and should not report a Y without such approval.
Michelle, I have a question
Yes.
for you.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from Jennifer, is there a difference for CIA for E&L teachers who push in versus those who co-teach?
Are they, if they're assigned to the class, then it would be the same, flag to identify them if they're attached to the course.
Yeah, I agree. If they're linked to the course, then the record that is exported for state reporting will be the same whether or not they are. I mean, the record that is exported does not identify a push-in scenario versus co-teach. It's just simply a record that links that teacher to the course.
But there are different roles that are assigned,
Right.
If it's a co-teach situation and someone else is the teacher of record, they're going to be looking at that. And then, or is this E&L teacher, the E&L teacher and the teacher of record? You know what I'm saying? So again, there's some distinguishing with the roles that are assigned, but you still want to make sure that the E&L flag is indicated in either scenario for the E&L teacher. Does that answer your question, Jennifer? I hope so.
Yes, she said thank you.
Okay. Okay, good, great. You're welcome. All right, so let's see here. Then moving on. Here we're viewing one of the courses listed for that sample teacher. So in level 0, we clicked view next to one of those courses. And one thing I'll note here too is that when you do that, you can see the state course code that it's mapped to. So that just gives you that little bit of piece of information if you need to see that for reference. But one other possibility in terms of the assignment is that it could be a bilingual course. And so if you look at that on the slide there as well, for bilingual courses, the primary language for the course would be set to a language other than English. So again, each SMS may handle this differently. I know in School Tool that's something that's set for each course and section in the master schedule. Right? All right, so before we move on to component 3, let's talk about those level 0 enhancements, those edits that I mentioned that took place last year. So here on the slide, we have 2 random courses. And sometimes the state course descriptions include the grades, so it's kind of easy to recognize if it's prior to secondary. Other times it's just a description, so it's helpful to have the level here. So you'll see this is from level 0. This is the course manual entry screen, and you can see on the bottom it says Language Arts Grade 2. That's part of the name of the state course, and so you know that that's prior to secondary. But then if you see a course like photography at the top, you might not know if that's indicated for prior to secondary or secondary. So they added this so that you could see that on the course manual entry screen. And again, as Pam mentioned, they also added it on the course report, so you can glance at all your courses and see that information quite easily. All right. So that will definitely be a help to you as you're looking at possible issues with that reporting. Also, in terms of the edit, level 0 errors will occur if you use a state course code designated as SWD or ENL ESL but do not have the appropriate flag selected for primary instructor and course instructor assignment. So if you're using, course codes that are indicative of that, but you have no for the special ed flag or no in the primary E&L instructor, you're going to get an error. And so that's going to force you to resolve that in level 0 because it won't let you migrate until you do that. So in turn, that should also hopefully have you have less errors or less out of cert teachers listed on your Surge 328 report. I did see a question pop up, but if someone could.
Yes, we have a question from Kristen. Where is the course report? She said in level 2 is a follow-up question.
The course report that I was just speaking of and that Pam was speaking of is in level 0. So you would go to reports and course, and you go to the district summary and be able to look there. They added a field to that report to show you the level.
She
You're
said,
welcome.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions so far?
Not
All right,
this
so,
time.
all right, great. So we'll move on to the third component. So component 3 is NYSE's crosswalk. So what is the crosswalk? Well, it's a spreadsheet posted on the IRSP, the IRS portal, the business, NYSE's business page. It links each state course code with corresponding certification areas. And when it does that, you can use that in conjunction with the SIRS 328 and the SIRS 329 to assist with course assignment review, because everything can be filtered. So you can filter it by state course code to see which certification areas match to that state course code, or you can look at the certification area code, which you can also see for your teachers in the SIRS 329 to see which state course codes align. So it's going to help you look at that even for planning purposes. So you have teachers that can teach a certain course, but in this case we're talking about resolving those out of cert situations. The most recent one that we have seen on the IRS portal is September 14th, 2023. If we know of any updates, we'll let you know. If you see any new ones updated, we're not always informed of what's updated on the IRSP. Certainly let us know. We can pass that along. So let's take a closer look at how the crosswalk is designed. So the crosswalk is set up in an Excel workbook. There are multiple tabs in that workbook. This is the primary tab, and you can filter by any of the fields here, but there are some key fields to mention. So the key fields would be state course code. So you could filter by the state course code to see, what certification areas are a match in terms of that state course code. You have certification area code, so you could filter by the certification area code to see how that aligns to the state course codes. And also the course level is here. So you can see, is this for a secondary course code? Is this for a prior to secondary? You may see all grades in that field as well, or combination thereof. And just a little bit of a pro tip for you: if you filter under certification area code 0052, or under cert area description, any valid certificate embeds crosswalk, you'll see a list of state course codes which match to any and all certification areas. Also, in the same workbook here for the crosswalk, you'll see some ancillary crosswalks, ones that are specific for SWD, or for ENL, ESL, or for bilingual. So you can look at those as well and kind of focus in on those. And there's also tabs for notes and tabs for all certification areas in the crosswalk. Okay, so now once we kind of combine the data from all of those components that we've talked about, components 1, 2, and 3, when they are combined, it produces the SIRS 328, which is the staff out of certification report. Again, the report guide is linked there for you. When you go into that report, there'll be certain criteria that you can select. You can select school year, you can select a specific school or all locations, and you can select certified status. You can say, I want to see all, I want to see yes, or I want to see no. Most often, everybody wants to see no. They want to see who's considered not certified, and that's fine. But it's probably a good idea to look at the report in its entirety. Remember, we're always kind of emphasizing complete and accurate. So you want to make sure that nobody's missing or no teacher is missing from the report. So when you were looking at the teachers with a certified status of no, the information on the SIRS 28 can help you determine why a teacher may be listed as teaching out of certification. So we have some arrows on the bottom there that are pointing to key columns that may be the source of the issue. So is it because of the course code? You know, the course code and the certification don't align. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Is it because of the primary language? Is it, you know, and you can see that those are all no in the certified column there. Is it because they are our primary instructor or don't have those flags indicated, special ed, E&L, or incidental? So those are some of those reasons. And again, course information on this report would be updated daily based on your migration of that data from level 0. So you do want to just note that as well, because sometimes you want to see are the changes that I made, are they now reflected? Are these teachers, you know, changed from a no to a yes once you do some updates? So kind of elaborating a little bit on, you know, why a teacher might be identified as coming up as out of cert or not certified for the course. It could be about their certification and if their certification is active. So the SIRS 329 is where you want to look to see if they have an active certification. And maybe you would also need to contact Teach if something seems to be stuck in that process. And just a note that's from the SIRS manual. It says teachers are required to have their certifications in place at the start of the school year. And it goes on to say that, you know, because a lot that has gone on, especially since COVID, they are allowing, you know, the certifications, as long as they're in place prior to that final match in May, you're typically good. If we learn anything different there, or there's a different deadline date for that certification, we'll let you know. So, but something to keep in mind that they may switch back to at some point, that they would be expecting any teacher to be certified in that area from the beginning of the school year. So right now they're giving that leeway, but that could change in the future. So let's see, ESL and bilingual certifications are not the same. Sometimes there's been some issues or some confusion between that. So ESL teachers need to be identified with the E&L indicator in your SMS, and the bilingual teachers would be identified by the fact that the language is something other than English for that course. And again, you could look at the SIRS 328 to see what flags are there, or to see what language is being used for the course. Did they receive the certification later in the school year? So again, that's something that I just spoke about and kind of ties in with the first one too. But if they don't receive it in time, you know, that means by the time of the pull, you know, it might be still in process. Then they would be considered not certified for the course. So something that you want to keep on top of there. And that's part of the reason too, to monitor this, start now, but to continue to look at this and monitor it up until the deadline. Okay, the next item is the certification they hold deemed appropriate for the course they reported. So this is when you want to look at the crosswalk. You know, are they, you know, you look at the course mapping, look at the certification areas, and then look at what certification they hold. Is it appropriate for that course and the way that it's mapped? If it's not, is there someone else that should be assigned to that course? Is it something where they could be named an incidental instructor? You know, and you want to do your best to resolve, but there may be cases where you can't resolve. So then you may, in fact, end up with a teacher or a few teachers where they are indeed teaching out of certification, but it is something that you want to look at and review to make sure. Did the teacher have approval from the BOCES to teach a course on an incidental basis? So again, yes, if they're going to be an incidental teacher, there is supposed to be that approval from your BOCES. Okay. So kind of the key takeaway here is that there are many contributing factors to this process, which means multiple staff are involved, and it takes time to review and make any necessary changes. You know, because you might be dealing with HR staff, you might be dealing with guidance staff and teachers, etc. So you want to take that time necessary to review this. And just to recap, you need to know teacher certification areas, and that's where the CSRS 329 comes into play. Teachers must be identified in both the SMS and HR staff snapshot, and those teach IDs must match in both locations. You must have a knowledge of your SMS functionality to know where all of those fields are located. Course mapping is a critical step in this process. Primary instructors are the ones subject to that certification match. And don't forget to use those indicators, the special ed indicator, ENL, incidental, with bilingual, reporting that language other than English, using your reports and resources provided to make decisions and resolve issues. So again, that's the CSRS 328, 329, and the crosswalk, and to reach out to us with any questions. So are there any questions at this point?
None in the chat, Michelle.
Okay, great. So with that, I'll send it back to Helen, as I think we're about all ready for our break.
I think we are about ready for a break. That's a lot of information that we just received from everyone. So we are going to take a 10-minute break now. Please be back when the 10-minute timer stops. All right. Well, we will see you soon. If I can get it started.
Okay. All right. Well, hello and welcome back from break, everybody. My name is Sarah Cross, and I am a part of our special services team here at the Mid-Hudson Rec. You might know my coworkers, Sean Cheatham and Samantha Viaz. I mainly head up the state reporting side of things, which is why you're seeing my face here today and at past DDC meetings. Next, please. First things first, I want to kick off with what's currently going on. And I mean, it's happening right now. The deadline is very, very close for this. This is the SE snapshot, also known as the bed stay snapshot. We're almost there. We're almost done with it. So what this is, it's taking a look at your special ed students who were receiving services on bed stay, which was October 4th of 2023. There for verification reports 1 through 6 and 8. They need to be certified on January 16th, 2024. Helen, could you just go back a slide, please? Thank you. So as I was saying, VR reports 1 through 6 and 8, their certification dates coming up on Tuesday, January 16th. That is a Tuesday, because we remember Monday is a holiday. All of our districts will be off. There are verifications 7 and 9 as well. They just don't require certification. So if there's 9 reports altogether, just keep in mind when you're looking in the PD system to certify this. A really, really, really important note. Tomorrow, Wednesday, January the 10th. That's the last day you have to migrate this data from level 0 so it can make it to the PD system in time for certification. So if you have any errors in there today, please contact your special ed office. Make sure they're working on those errors. Those get done today. So during tonight's auto import, they will be corrected.
I've got a question for you, Sarah.
Oh, yes.
from
Thank you,
Kristen.
Pam.
She says, for these reports, we need to review SE event and SE snapshot, correct? So,
Events is different, and I will be getting to that in a little bit. This specifically for certification on Tuesday is just your SE snapshot for Beds Day. But I will talk about those SE events in a moment.
thank you, Sarah.
But great question. Thank you. Okay, first, I just want to talk about a little reminder. This is a hot topic amongst districts even still. This change came out only a couple years ago. So I just wanted to remind you guys. The start date that is being reported for the type of disabilities for new referrals is now the day after the meeting. On the frontline side of things, your special ed office doesn't have to make any specific changes. However, it does change a little part of the enrollment. They will need a 0011 enrollment starting the day after the meeting to match the type of disability that is now starting the day after the meeting. I want to make one exception here. There's no change to children who transition from early intervention to CPSE and continue in EI services. We're mainly going to see this change for new referrals for CPSE and if you've had any unenrolled CSE new referral students. Next slide, please. So this is just the enrollment requirements for the scenario that I was just referring to. As I mentioned, it mainly just affects your new referrals to CPSE. The only time it would affect a school-age student was if they're not already enrolled in your district. But these are the basic requirements. Either a 4034 or a 5905 reason for beginning enrollment on the date of referral. 140 reason for ending that enrollment the day of the initial meeting. So once that meeting is held and if they're found eligible, then this placeholder piece, that's the new 0011 reason for beginning enrollment starting the day after the initial meeting, again, to match the type of disability now reporting the day after the initial meeting. And that's going to use the location of homebound. And like we know, most students do not start services right away. I do see a question in the chat about waiting till the Board of Ed meeting to start services. Great question. This homebound enrollment is only the placeholder. And then once they start services, whether you're waiting for consent or after you get consent, you have to wait for your Board of Ed meeting, then you will have your next 001 run enrollment beginning the day that special ed services start. And then you'll use the location as the actual provider they will be seeing.
Question, Sarah? Yeah.
Yes, this follow-up question I might refer back to you guys. If we put them in homebound location, do you need to report attendance for them?
And
not
I can
familiar with
chime in
attendance.
on that. And attendance is not required for preschool students. So it's not required to be reported. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Pam. So if you have more questions on this, please feel free to reach out for me. As I said, this is a hot topic amongst our districts, so we get questions about this all the time. So I figured I'd just share while I have a mass audience. Moving on. So our Title I Part A program services extract. So typically, if you've been with us for a while, we start to pull your Title I extract around this time. This year, as a team, we got together and we decided to start it much earlier for two main reasons. NYSA does have the capability to go in and take a look at your Title I data at any point in time. So previously, when we were waiting until, the second half of the year, that left a good first half of the year with no Title I reporting available. Secondly, it does take some adjustments for districts to get their Title I data in the system. We get these authorizations back. We work with you in getting your Title I data set up. So because that does take a little bit of time, we decided to, again, starting it earlier would just be better. So, by the time this season comes around, we can really hit the ground running. So with that being said, Title I Part A data, this is only applicable to our frontline RTI and our RTI Edge districts. If you do not subscribe to one of those RTI programs, we do not support those services. So we only perform these for these districts. The authorizations were sent out on November 13th via our DW Extracts email. These went out to our administration. So if you're unfamiliar, if your district has returned the authorization form, or if you haven't seen your Title I data, you can ask them, or you could reach out to me and I can clarify if you guys still need to turn in your authorization form. So for those districts that did send in their authorization forms back to DW Extracts, we started importing with import number 6 a little while ago. So that's that on our Title I.
There is another attendance question. What about non-preschool students who are waiting for a placement as far as attendance goes?
I think I'm gonna, since it's attendance related, you'd like me to step in on that one, Sarah?
I would appreciate it greatly, Pam.
Okay, so any school age student who's in the homebound building, I think we talked about a little earlier, you're required to report attendance for those students. So yes, they're required to be reported. For preschool students, state ed does not look for their attendance to be reported. So, and depending on how your SMS is set up, you may or may not, it may be that it extracts preschool attendance, even though it's not required to be reported, and that's fine. It's not gonna generate errors, but you are required to report attendance for homeschool students, students in the homeschool building. Kathy had a follow-up question. Would it be present or absent if waiting? That would depend on if you have, if the student's receiving tutoring, and that kind of crosses into the, the your district council and what your legal requirements are to provide instruction to those students. Okay, thanks, Kathy.
Awesome. Thank you, Pam. All right, next slide, please. All right, special education program services. So this again is just another reminder about our program fact auto imports for you guys. Those are still on auto import. They started at the beginning of the school year and they're going to continue to run through August. What is your program fact? That's your type of disability, the safety net, alternate assessment, section 504 data. That's coming out of Frontline and auto importing into level 0 for you. I do have an additional note down there about our bed stay snapshot. As you are probably well aware, that is currently also running on auto import on a nightly basis from Frontline into level 0. Next slide, please. So now we're going to get into our end of year stuff. So this is more of a reminder of what is up and coming. I will relate back to the question that we had about SE events in just a moment. So our end of year snapshot assessment fact, as well as our SE events. Those auto imports will be starting later this school year in June, and they're going to run all the way through till August, or some of them even September, depending on when certification is. So we have our end of year snapshot. This is your preschool services students. So all preschool students who had services, it's taking a look at those guys at any point within this past school year. Our assessment fact, that's our our indicator 7, which is our preschool outcomes. Then we have our SE events, which are indicators 11, which is child find timely evaluations and eligibility, as well as indicator 12, which is our EI transitioned to CPSE. And also we do have our VR 14 included in the SE events, which is parentally placed students in non-public schools who were evaluated. So your district will only have to report on that if you have non-public schools within your district. So now to dive in a little bit further about the SE events, if we could go to the next slide, please. A big update. So I believe we did mention this during our last district data coordinator meeting, but now we have a little bit more clarity of information. All districts are now required to report and certify SE events starting with the 23-24 school year. So the school year we're currently in. The SE events, meaning indicators 11 and 12, were formerly called plan indicators, meaning they were on a rotational basis. So your district only had to worry about certifying and reporting every 6 years or so. Well, within the past couple of years, there's been a lot going on with these particular indicators. So NYSED has come out and said, we're changing it. We want all districts to do this every year now. The next note, some districts are required to submit their SE event data as early as January 12th, 2024. So you've probably noticed that we did start your SE events auto import. I believe it was early December we started that, so you guys could get your data into level 0. Again, that's coming out of Frontline. You should have been contacted directly by NYSED to determine what group your district falls in. So when I say some districts are required to submit early, you would be in the group 1 category. Group 2, you're only encouraged, but you are still required to submit data and certify it by the end of the certification, which is September 9th. Group 3, you are required to submit data. However, you do not have to certify the data on that September 9th date. So if you're unsure of what group your district falls into, please reach out to your administration. If there's still some confusion on this situation, you can certainly reach out to the special services team. We do have some additional guidance for you, or we have additional lists that we can take a look at and help you with your data. So hopefully this answers the question that your SE snapshot is currently being certified and your SE events are currently being reported, but no certification needs to take place at this time. Right, and moving on. So just to briefly talk about our CEIS and our CCIS, which is our Coordinated Early Intervening Services, and the comprehensive side of that. This is just another indicator that we're prepping for the end of the year. Your district is only required to report on this if you have students using 15% of your IDEA funds for coordinated early intervening services or comprehensive coordinated early intervening services. If you are unsure if your district does fall into this category, typically the person in your district who would know this information is whoever is responsible for your grants. So they'll know where all this money is being allocated to and from. So you can double check with them to see if you should be reporting on your CS or CS. And next. That is all we have from the special services team. One last note though, we do have a group email, specialservices@mhric.org, right on your screen here. There's our group number as well. Sarah, that's me, Sean, and Sam. We each have our own individual contacts as well, but we please ask, even if you know it's something state reported related that you want to ask me directly, please put special services on that email as well, just in case I'm out at the office or I'm tied up with something else. My teammates can help me out, and vice versa. If it's something that you need them for, just contact the whole group. We all get it, as well as additional members that you don't see on your screen, people working behind the scenes with us. So that's super important, and we would love to stress that if you're trying to reach us. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, DDC team, for throwing an amazing presentation, and thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Our next adventure will be our breakout session. We've designated 20 minutes for the breakout session. And then when we all come back to the main group, we can have a discussion about the discussions if you want. So what are the breakout rooms today? We have 6 breakout rooms for you. You will be able to choose your own breakout room, and you can change between rooms. If one doesn't seem right once you're in there, you can change to another one if you want to float around. If there could be a person who might like to report out from each room once we get back, that would be great. And if not. This is really for you. These rooms will not be, there won't be presentations in there. They're really rooms for you to discuss topics with your colleagues from around the region. With the exception of 2 of the rooms, there will be representatives from the RIC in there, and we'll get into that right now. So we'll have the Stump the RIC room, which was a favorite from last time. If you have any questions that, about things that we aren't necessarily discussing today, or, any questions at all, Stump the RIC, we will have a couple of people in that room for you to try to stump. The second room is the big thing I did or planned to do. If you had a major accomplishment last year, or you're going to or planning for one this year, if you had a job promotion, if you became a grandparent, whatever the thing is, if it's a big thing and you would like to discuss it with your colleagues, go ahead into that room. Is AI taking over the world? I guess that's yet to be seen, but there's a discussion topic for you about AI. There's also a speed networking room. In this room, if you want to share who you are, what district you work with, what your role is, and maybe a sentence or 2 or 3 about what your particular job entails, what you're hoping to do in that job. There is a room for data everywhere, and this is about data, not necessarily about state reportable data. This can be, it can be about state reportable data, but it can also be about big data. It could also be about the use of data in society, whatever you want that to be. And finally, we have a 6th room at your special services. And I believe there will be a representative from special services in that room to answer any questions or to just be there to oversee the topic. So what I will do is share out, if Zoom will let me, is share out the breakout rooms. I already have them set up. So again, it's going to be 20 minutes. It will give you a 30-second warning to come back to the room when it's done, and then we'll discuss for another 10. So I'm going to go ahead and open all the rooms now. Choose your own adventure, and we'll see you on the flip side. Let's see, I think all people should be back in the room by now. So I hope that that was enjoyable and informative for you. If there's a representative from each room who'd like to say something about what the discussion was like. There was no one in the in number 2 and number 4, so the big thing or the speed networking. So that leaves Stump the Rick, is AI taking over the world, data everywhere, and at your special services. So 4 groups, 10 minutes, you get 2.5 minutes each. Who wants to go first? How about Stump the Rick? You
I
can
don't
just
know if I
go
have 2.5 minutes to cover, but we
up to you.
discussed, yeah, we discussed FERPL. There were some questions in there. The spectrum location came up, which we're going to cover a little bit later in the presentation. Also, there were some questions about non-compliant, non-public schools. And that was about it. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Is AI taking over the world?
We
This
had
is
an
the
interesting
Skynet yet.
conversation. This is Karen. We there was about 8 of us in there, and we were talking about AI and where we're at in our schools. And some schools are still looking at it. Some schools actually have trained their teachers, their administrators. Some are looking, like Marlboro is actually looking for a policy to put in place. And it was interesting. They were saying that Erie One doesn't have anything yet, but the School Boards Association put out a sample of what they thought. So it's kind of interesting that that kind of stuff is coming out. And then it was also shared with us by Marlboro. They're using Learnix, LEARNICS. And then we got into a really good conversation about spatial computing and how that's being combined with virtual reality and the new Google glasses that are coming out. So you can look like to your right, and it might not be in class, but you can see the kids to your right with the glasses. So the VR stuff coming in. So there was quite a few of us in there that tended to be techie nerds. So we liked that stuff. So we were kind of going a little off key of what's coming around. And like most of us, we like it, and we see it as useful. So, you know, what's coming around and how it can be helpful to people and helpful to kids. But some people it scares a lot. We also talked about that.
It does. A lot of people are very wary of it. David put a comment in the chat and says, I think we can generate an AI policy using ChatGPT. Kind of self-referential. It's kind of like the finger pointing at itself. You know, you can't really do that.
Even Facebook now has the AI for your posts. It's really funny. It's everywhere.
Yep, it sure is. Well, thank you, Karen. Is there anyone who'd like to talk to data everywhere?
Hi, this is Joan in Falling. We kind of commiserated a little bit about the challenge of doing the civil rights reporting during the school year as opposed to doing it in the summer the way it always was. And I use the school tool census report tool to get the CD, whatever it is, breakdowns, and that works really well. I am so thrilled to have that tool. But I think Aris told us about that there is a report in level 1 now also that gives you the breakdown, which I didn't even know about.
Yep.
But the biggest, I'm sorry, go ahead, Samantha.
There's a level 1 report. It was sent out to the field in a data news newsletter a few versions ago. So it exists out there if you look in your email.
So I'll take a look for that also. The other biggest challenge, well, a big challenge that we have right now is this is the first year as for the district report that they're asking us about our out-of-district students. And it's very difficult in School Tool to pull out-of-district students for a particular year. It really is. You get plenty of, even with the expert that I have, you get kids that don't belong in that list. And so you kind of have to weed through them. And I've asked special ed to tell me, they can't even tell me, you know, who are our district students in that year, because I would just believe them and put them in, you know. But I only have one more time I have to do this before I retire. I can see the end in sight. So that was the only, and anybody else from the group want to add anything to that? That was kind of what we talked about. No?
I will
You
just
guys have
comment
any,
on the chat. There was a question about what report is there in level 1. I don't remember the exact name of it, but if you go into level 1 and you go into the search field and you search CRDC, it should
Yeah.
come up for you.
okay, I will.
It may either be CRDC or it could be spelled out. I can't remember.
Could be one
Yeah,
or the
either
other.
way.
CRDC or civil
Spelled out.
rights data collection. Okay,
Yeah, okay, Keith says it's spelled out.
thank you.
Does it
think
have
it was
anything
just-
about the out of districts in there?
Remember,
Uh,
it's
yeah.
only gonna have the data you report.
Well, we do report it, but, we do report
It-
the
I mean,
particular
it's gotta go through
places that
level
we-
0, migrate, and migrate to level 1. So if you're not reporting your out of district students, are you
We
talking
are.
out of district or like students, at local private schools or such?
Students that we've placed out of district, they're asking us for the first time this year
Okay.
to report them
Okay,
only
so-
in the district portion, obviously not in the building.
Okay, so then, yeah, they would be reported and, I can't answer the specifics of what the CRDC report is giving you.
Okay, but I'll look.
Because we just don't work with it that much.
Okay, but I'll take a look. That might be wonderful.
Great. Thanks, Joan.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
And to wrap this up, would anyone like to report back out about your experience in the At Your Special Services breakout room?
I can touch on it a bit if nobody else wants to. That's totally okay. But hello, Sarah, again. It was really nice in our breakout room. We had the whole special services team there with us. So Sam and Sean had joined us. So that was great because we have a whole plethora of knowledge between us. And we had a wide variety of questions from our districts. Some questions were asking about, we have the IEP viewer in a lot of our SMSs. We were talking about how we can make that work for declassified students to take a look at their testing and combinations, support services and things like that. So that was one of the topics we talked about. We did talk a little bit about those enrollment questions. We elaborated a little bit on some of the questions that we got while I was doing the presentation. We talked about some new courses. And then we finished up with talking about some snapshot errors that are coming up for one of our districts. Yeah, if anybody else wants to join in. Oh, that's the gist, the Reader's Digest version.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
All right. It feels to me like that was a great breakout, great 20 minutes spent. Or 30 minutes spent. And now we're going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming, which brings us to some level 1 reports that Sam is going to bring us through. Sam, take it away.
Thanks, Ellen. All right, so we're going to begin with the L1C error report. There have been some updates this year, and you might notice some new errors. L1C errors can be for students and staff. Usually when you see staff errors, their teacher names not matching teach, but they should still be looked at as it may lead to a wrong teach ID being used. So as we review, just think of this scenario that you have your data in level 0, you've migrated it. You're looking at the level 2 report after Monday for most of the reports on level 2, and the data isn't there. So you're saying, where did it go wrong, right? Well, you should go back to your L1C error report and see if there's any errors that could prevent your data from moving on to level 2. Okay, so some may not know L1C stands for the level 1 container. When data moves from level 0 to level 1 through the level 1 container, if there aren't any errors, the data migrates on to level 2. If there are errors with the data, we call them L1C errors, as they do not meet level 2 logic requirements for that data. So on this report, there are two types of L1C error messages. There's the true errors that prevent data from migrating on to level 2. And then the ones with warnings, you'll see little asterisks. And they do not prevent the data from migrating to level 2, but you may want to look at them to ensure that the data is valid. And also, there is a report guide for the L1C error report, which is linked there. Okay, so as with many things, there are multiple ways to find this L1C report. There is first the report icon next to the search field, which has the L1C report listed. You can also use the search field that's now found in the upper right-hand corner by searching L1C. Anytime that you use the search, L1 will also show the breadcrumb trail. And by using the breadcrumb trail, it brings you through the folders to find this L1C report. So you might be wondering, like, how often should I pull this report? Typically, I recommend, or I pull the report a day or so after I migrate data from level 0. But especially you want to make sure to pull it after a new domain is loaded to level 0 because you can catch errors. Okay, so at the top of each report in level 1, there will be like a short blurb about the report explaining what you're going to find and a direct link to the report guide if there is one for that particular report. So first, you must choose your district. You will only see the district that you have access to. I have access to many here, which is why you see more there. And then you're going to choose the report option, which then will populate the report date. And you're going to choose that. Next, you're going to choose the error types, staff and student. I typically default to both because I want to see errors for both. And then next you want to choose either data errors and or warnings. Again, I typically default to both because I want to look at all the issues, and I click finish. So this will render your report. And once these filters are chosen, you're going to notice the first page on the L1C error report is a summary page that shows the number of errors and the number of warnings. Okay, so the report always shows this format. So starting with the student ID, when you click on the student ID, it'll bring you to also a student inquiry report for that particular student, which could help you figure out what is going on with this error. Next is the error type. This will show us what domain it's from, which helps us figure out where the error populated. And then the extract date. So this does matter when you're resolving errors, especially if the error was resolved after this date, the report wouldn't show it. So you have to keep that in mind as you're going through here. There's also the error number. The letters, they represent the domain. So PS for program service. And that's also helpful if you're referring to the like a cheat sheet we have or errors in that level 0 manual that I think Pam linked earlier in the presentation. Additionally, there's the error message, which does give you some clue as what the error means to help you figure out where it went wrong. If it's attendance related, there are some additional columns that would appear to the right of this column here, giving you attendance dates. And then additionally at the bottom, you're going to see these little footnotes. Pay attention to these because many times it will help you explain why the student is showing on this error report. So it goes through some explanations on NYSIS. Okay, so moving on. These are just some of the many errors you will see on the L1C error report. Most of them are self-explanatory, but some will take further research with a critical eye. So I did also want to mention that L1C errors could be a timing issue. So the L1C report updates after a nightly refresh and every time you migrate from level 0. So definitely keep that in mind as you're resolving errors. So, for example, a student, if they're coming up and they're erroring in every domain, that's usually a clue that they don't have a NYSIS ID assigned yet. They may be so new that their data hasn't migrated to level 2 and they haven't had a NYSIS assigned and come back to level 1. So this would be a clue to check NYSIS and your near match queue to see if they're in there and a resolution is needed. So this year with due to the new state reporting for staff assignments that I think Pam also mentioned, you'll notice the L1C warning message for those certain staff missing assignment fields and percent time assigned. So as of right now, that is a warning, but very soon these warnings will soon turn to those those warning failure errors in level 0. So you want to resolve those in your HR software. And I think Pam also did mention that the Envision did add those fields in December. So better to work on those sooner than later. Okay. So if you want to save this L1C error report to share with other departments, you're going to go where it says HTML. It's a little confusing, I know, but to see the different download options, you have to click on HTML to see them. And this save process is the same for all level 1 and level 2 reports. So if a user does save the L1C error report to Excel, just keep in mind each domain's errors will be put into separate tabs. And if you are in a level 1 report and you want to change your filters, you can always do so. You can reset the prompts and run by that little swirly arrow there, and that'll bring you back to the beginning of the report to re-choose those filters. All right, so if I don't have any questions, I see one just popped up.
Yeah, the question about the Center for Spectrum Services, we are going to be touching on a little bit later in the presentation. So please hold your questions on that until the end. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the next level 1 resource, which is the data quality report card. Okay, so quality is never an accident, and it is always the result of intelligent effort. John Ruskin. So I mentioned this because data quality is just echoed in this quote. The more effort that's put into constantly clean, rinse, and repeat, as we always mention with the data, the more accurate the data will be. So you don't want to leave your verification until a deadline or the end of year. Try to do that. Verification should try to be done throughout the year. So if it isn't already, just think of this as for your internal data team, possibly setting a goal throughout the year as you're going. All right, so with that, we're going to jump back over to the data quality report card. So as with the L1C report, you can find this report card in multiple ways on level 1. You can use that report icon next to the search field, or you can use the search field by searching data quality. Anytime you use the search field, level 1 will always show you the breadcrumb trail through the folders, so you know how to get to it that way as well. Okay. So the data quality report card does check data at level 1, and it provides a reasonable status based on a key that we'll go over shortly. It does help districts check data points all in one visual report for multiple domains, which I find very helpful. You'll want to keep this resource in your toolbox as it'll help you find potential data inaccuracies. Now, as with anything else, you want to make sure that you're looking at this with a critical eye because it may say something's inaccurate, but once you research it, you'll find that maybe it isn't. And then also I just wanted to note here the direct link to the report guide for this particular report. Okay, so for the report card, it's color coded, as I mentioned, which is very helpful. It helps to verify data by section. If you desire, you can only pull one of the sections if you want, so it's not so overwhelming. So you could set like a calendar reminder to verify maybe a domain a week or a month or something. So it's a little more palatable. It does have hyperlinks to drill down into the particular potential errors or warnings. And it does even link your L1C errors on here as well, if you wanted to see that. So starting with the red X, this means that it is an error, that it did not pass the logic of the report. But as we mentioned previously, it could also mean that it's just something that hasn't happened yet. So maybe the June regents, because we're in January, they haven't been reported. So it's going to be a big red X until you get to that June regents point and the data is reported. A green check means that there are no errors. It's past the logic. A blue eye for informational. So this means that the system really doesn't know if it's correct and you need to research it further. And then also there's a new little icon, proceed with caution. So the yellow triangle. So it's a new addition and it indicates where there could be potential issues or the numbers may be not reasonable. So either way, again, it's something that should be reviewed and see for your data quality. So anytime that your data is migrated from level 0 to level 1 after a nightly refresh, this report will update. Okay. So
Okay, Sam, just, we had a question in the chat about which
Yes.
year to use when selecting the report. And since this particular report uses the end of year date, you would select 2024 to get the 23-24 school year reports.
Exactly. Good point, which actually brings us right into the next slide. So when you're looking at the report, you're going to be able to see the last 3 years. So it's going to compare those last 3 years. So going from left to right, it's going to show you the school year 22, then 23, and the 24 school year, if you pulled it for the 2024 school year, exactly as Pam mentioned. And it also does, in the parentheses, it'll show you the difference from this year, what's been reported thus far, to the prior year. So in this example, like in that screenshot, it shows the enrollment is 14 students higher than last year. So this could kind of lead you when you're comparing those numbers from year to year, it could lead you to a potential data inaccuracy. But also keep in mind with COVID, there could have been changes or maybe changes in programs. You know, some districts I know started pre-K programs and stuff. So just keep those in mind as you're comparing those different years. And also on the right side, it shows you the logic message that the report used to come up with these numbers. So that's how the report came up with those enrollment numbers. All right.
John
Okay,
has a
Sam, I'm gonna take
question.
you back to the level 1C report for a minute. We have
Okay.
a question on the level 1C error list. And the question is, if a student has an N on the NISIS ID column, does this indicate that they are missing a NISIS ID?
Typically, yes. And if you'll notice that student, if you reported any other domains like programs, anything else, attendance, they'll also error for any other domain. So what you'll want to do is if you have access to NISIS, go and see if the student is in your near match queue, because they may be sitting there waiting. If you recently match the student, it does take some time for that NISIS ID to come back and reflect from level 2 to level 1. All right. Any follow-up questions
Thanks,
on that
Sam.
one? Okay. All right. So moving on to the next slide, Helen, please. Thank you. So many DDCs have told us they'll use like visualizations from level 1 for board meetings or superintendent meetings. So you may want to know how to share them. Now, there's a few ways you can do that. So you can take screenshots of the visualization, of course. You can also save it with any filter changes if like you did any filter edits in your My Content folder, that'll save it for yourself. Or there's a district shared folder on level 1. And that means that anybody in your district that has level 1 access, if you put it in that folder, will be able to see it with your changes. So as of now, dashboards and visualizations, they can still only be exported in PDF format. I know there have been requests for other export options, but at this time it's still only PDF. But there is a new share icon, so you can see it there. But when you click on that, when we go to the next slide, you will see you can now email reports and visualizations by clicking the share icon. So if you're sharing through email, a few things to keep in mind. Don't email anything with staff or student PII. And then also you should only email this to somebody who has level 1 access at your district. We shouldn't be emailing it to parents or students or anybody else. So only people that have level 1 access.
I just want to add to that a little, if that's
Yeah,
okay, Sam.
absolutely.
The part about not sending PII, when you send this email, it doesn't send PII directly in an email. It will email you a link so that you can look at the level 1 report that someone is wanting to share with you. So don't be worried if there's PII in a report. You can still email the information from that report. The PII won't be included in the email. It will just be a link. And that's why it has to be someone else with level 1 access, because if you email someone a link to a report in level 1 and they don't have level 1 access, they're not going to be able to review it. So the only people you can send it to is someone else who has level 1 access.
Perfect. Thank you. All right.
Okay, I have
So,
a question.
sure.
So this is new, so we're discovering all of this too as well. So if you're an individual with district level access and you generate a district level report, my assumption is you will only be able to email it to another user, well, who also has district level access. So in order for them to be able to see the report.
Yeah, you may be able to email it to someone without that access, but they wouldn't be able to see it unless they
Yeah.
have the same access.
So just keep in mind
Right.
that, you know, different people have different levels of access at level 1, and that may impact whether or not they can see the report.
Good point.
Great.
All right.
So,
Okay, so moving on, you might be wondering like why I'm going to go over how to log off because it seems so simple. But if you have access to level 1 and level 2 to prevent getting yourself caught in a loop of which one am I in, you just want to be sure to log off of each before trying to log into the opposite if you're using the same browser. Okay, if you're trying to log into level 1 and 2 on the same browser. If you're using 2 different browsers, you can be logged in to level 1 and level 2 at the same time. But typically I know people like to stick with the one browser. So also after our meeting, we will share a new level 1 basic navigation resource. I think it's a PDF because level 1 has been updated recently, just for your reference. And also, we have a full overview of Cognos navigation a training video at this link. You'll need to put that passcode in to access it. So if there aren't any other questions, then I'm going to pass it over to Helen.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Testing has provided some slides for your reference that I've included here in the slide deck. They will also be providing a recorded version of their presentation that I will email to the field after this meeting. Incidentally, to expound upon what I said earlier in the meeting about what after this meeting means, it will probably not be today, as the Ulster BOCES and Mid-Hudson RIC staff has been notified that we will be also having an early dismissal today at 2. So likely these will be sent out tomorrow or the day after. So thanks for your patience on that. But in the meantime, I'm going to run through the testing services slides and just mention the slide title so you know what is there for you. They're going to be talking about August regents, January regents, June regents, lots of regents, 3 through 8 assessments, 3 through 8 paper testing, 3 through 8 computer testing, NISA and NICETEL, and this is their contact information if you need to get a hold of them. And also, incidentally, the data team does not have a contact us slide in this presentation, but we will put one in before we send it to the field. So moving on from testing, we're going to go to our on the horizon section. And, you know, these are going to be things that are coming up for you. We are going to talk about the spectrum services issue in this section. And let's get started. This was announced in a P20 weekly communication from SED, but we thought we would provide it here too. NICED has released 2 resources to help schools and districts understand the current accountability system using the 22-23 school year data. Here's those resources for you. Both resources address topics such as accountability, support models, indicators used to make accountability determinations, and exit criteria. And there will be more information in the handout, in the what am I trying to say? The handouts after the meeting. If you have any questions whatsoever, you should address them to accountinfo@niced.gov. And so here's what we've all been waiting for, some information on the Center for Spectrum Services BEDS code. Mariah, would you like to join us?
Indeed. Now, as folks frequently know, when I come on, it's usually because there's bad news. But today is the exception. So go ahead and buy that lottery ticket. And even my team didn't know because we got the email from NICED while the meeting was happening. So the quick version of events is that the Center for Spectrum Services was originally listed with a SED code that was under the Kingston School District. And then, as you can see from the history we've listed here, in December of 2022, it was updated to reflect that it was in the Saugerties School District, its main headquarters. For reasons that were not made clear to us, the NICED decided on January 3rd of this year to change that and to once again put it back under its old code in the Kingston School District. So we don't know why. They didn't really give us an explanation, and they also didn't tell anyone. So we discovered it as you discovered it and started emailing us to say, hey, why is our stuff not working? All right. So after a week of correspondence and Pam Wakowiak going the extra mile to actually go into the tax records to see where that address is listed, SED has finally realized, oh yeah, it really is in Saugerties. And so, okay, the reason we held out putting anything out to the field is we were hoping you didn't have to change anything. And the good news is that you don't. SED has made the correction today. After the refresh tonight, it will go back to reflecting the Saugerties SED code that folks were using. So just don't touch anything today, and hopefully by tomorrow, all of your records should be working. So,
Woo!
yep, that was our big use for this week. All right, so
I
thank you.
would advise that any district that has students in this location re-import and re-migrate so that that data, make sure if you have changed your records, and I believe some districts may have, to go back and use the Kingston, which is the 620 beds code. If you have changed it, you should change it back, unfortunately, to make sure you're using the beds code link or the location code link to the 621. And then I would advise you all to just re-import and
No,
re-migrate
Pam,
that
they want to
data.
use the location code, the 620.
No, 621.
Oh, 621 is, oh, okay, yep, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yep, you're right.
sorry. Yeah, we went back and, yeah.
Change back because it went
They've
back and
gone
forth so many
back and
times.
forth so
Sorry.
many times, so, it's,
Okay.
okay. So, anyway, that's, I think that's our story and we're sticking to it. And we apologize for, the confusion and the angst. On behalf of State Ed, or we just, yeah.
It's State Ed.
Awesome, State
It's State
Ed.
Ed. So use 621-601-996-004. I'm going to type it into the chat. All right, this is the official one I got today from NYSED, 601-996-004. All right. So that is the one that we just got from NYSED this morning. Okay, so that should be the one that is working going forward. All right, per the email that we received. Okay, if we get any further information, we will email everybody immediately. Again, apologies for holding out, but we didn't want to tell everyone to change something that didn't need to be changed. And we wanted to make sure that, so we just wanted to engage with NYSED to make sure that they knew what they were doing. And here we are. So, all right. So thank you everyone for that. We can move on to the next topic.
Thank you. Awesome. There was a question. Kathy Hoey asked a question. I don't know if that was addressed specifically. She said-
I had responded to her. She
Oh,
said
okay.
she needed to leave by 12. And I told her that we would email with the final results of the spectrum issue.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, and we'll probably send out a general email on this,
Okay.
just for all our districts.
Yes, we will. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we can talk about the remaining meeting dates for the 23-24 school year. We did add the links for registration to this slide. So if you wanted to register for those upcoming meetings, you can do so here. I know a lot of people have already registered, so thanks to everyone who has already done that. But here's where you can do that. Put that on your calendars, March 19th and June 4th. Okay, so in December, the data team began using an email package called S'more. Yes, those s'mores. Like, now I'm hungry, I want to eat a s'more. It's used to design and distribute our monthly data newsletters, and it's used by specifically, the package is specifically for educational institutions. Upon sending out our first newsletter with this, it came to our immediate attention that some districts blocked the sender and some individual users thought it was spam and some individual users unsubscribed. IT departments in districts that were affected and didn't receive the newsletter at all have been notified by our IT team to whitelist S'more's IP and email addresses so you can begin to receive these important communications. If you were among the folks who unsubscribed, I can't add you back. We can't add you back. So please do resubscribe to the data news. If you have resubscribed and need a link to do that, I can send that to you. These emails are sent to you to provide news from SED, news from the RIC, including deadlines, pro tips, training opportunities, and more information that is really need to know. So if you don't receive the January edition of Data News by the end of this week or early next week, please reach out to us at datawarehouse@mhric.org so that we can research the issue further. Okay, so this is how we're going to be sending, and we would love for you to receive these important emails. So we have a Q&A session here now. If you would like to, we have 3 ways we're going to be able to do the Q&A session. We have Shannon, the January news should come out either at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. So you can ask questions in 3 manners today. You can use the chat like we've been using today. You could unmute yourself and ask a question verbally, or bang, you can ask a question at this site. If you want to type in that link, I don't think it's copyable or clickable from your end of the world. But if you want to go to slides.app.goo/MZJ_N_D, I will receive those questions. You can ask them with your own name, or you can remain anonymous if you like. And then we'll put that question up on the screen and be able to talk to it and discuss it. So any of those methods are workable for us if you would like to do that. Thank you, John Baker. John has put the link in there so that you can go ahead and click on it. So if there are any questions from anyone, now's your chance. Louisa is asking, did we talk about the grade level UE/US issue?
We didn't talk about UE/US today. What was the particular issue, Louisa?
Well, we had some, hello. Well, we had some districts experiencing fatal errors when they had a student that might have been in like grade 7 and they had the grade level as US, and you can't override that, error. So they had to make that student a UE.
Yeah, the state ed had that used to be an informational message, which was often ignored. And so state ed, in order to, work towards cleaner data, that's hard to say with a Massachusetts accent, by the way. They've made that a warning fatal error. And so, yes, that's exactly what happened. And the solution to it is to change the grade level, whether it's ungraded elementary or ungraded secondary, to align with the student's date of birth.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's another question in the chat from Shannon and Saugerties. She says she's on week 2 of her new position at Saugerties. Congratulations, Shannon, and welcome. Any advice on acclimating myself to reporting is appreciated. Anyone want to chime in on that? I will say that we will provide this presentation as a recording after the meeting. So reviewing this is good. It'll also have the slides. And there are a lot of resources out there for you, like the SIRS manual. What did John say? John said
Yeah, she.
The
other
data
help.
Shannon's getting a lot of empathy and support from other relatively new DDCs, and they are doing a great job in advertising the mentorship program. So I will jump on that bandwagon and say you may want to sign up for that for next year, since we are already well into it for this year. There are, read through the newsletters. It's going to firstly, be patient with yourself. This will take time. There's a lot to learn, and as you go through the calendar year, new things will come up. It's not a okay, now I know everything and I can do what I need to do. It's something that will grow with you over time. So, but and you see the recommendations here. And call and ask questions. The SIRS manual is a great document, as Alex mentioned, where you can look things up. We always refer to that as your primary source. And, the help desk is here for when you have questions, and and Mike's final comment with thoughts and prayers. That helps too at times. So yeah, just reach out for support when you need it, when you're confused, and be patient with yourself. And also the mentorship program for next year may be very helpful for you to kind of give you the big picture. That's our goal in the mentorship program, is the big picture of what's happening. So anything else? So
Also, our website has a lot of great resources under our page, under the data management page.
And sort of taking a data collection inventory, starting to look at your district and knowing what source systems you have and how that is being reported to SIRS, your HR or your lunch management or your, all of, your special ed data, all of that, how is that reaching SIRS, reaching level 0, and who is responsible for that information, and then starting to build a team, because we stress that this is something that you can't do by yourself. It's too all encompassing, and they keep adding requirements and not taking away. So you need to know your source systems, know the people that are responsible for entering, maintaining, and verifying data in those source systems, so that when you import data and there are errors and there are things to correct, that you have those experts, you have those people in the district who can help you with that.
Are there any remaining questions? And no one wanted to use my fun slides app.
I sent you a testing question.
You did send me a
just to
testing.
see if it worked.
I'll present that and I'll just show everyone how that works. So if you
I was honestly expecting John to put a question in there.
if you were to ask a question, this is how it would come up. And I have the capability of taking that away and putting it up. So it won't just appear. It'll appear to me first, and then I can put it. Anyway, okay, so I'm assuming there's no more questions. At which point I will. Oh, here's a good question.
Yeah, there we go. I knew if I put him on the spot, he'd respond.
I think this is a good ending note for the that's a good essay topic, John. I think that you should write an essay on why is the MHRIC so fantastic.
Please feel free to remind your business officials as the ISR and FSS process is about to start. So just remind them that they're getting their money's worth.
We should have changed the focus from Q&A to compliments.
Good work.
They get you everywhere.
Okay, everybody get home safely.
Yes, everybody get home.
Yes, be careful.
Thank you so much for attending. I'm going to turn this part off, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.